I'm Kevin Barnaby, and welcome to this edition of Capital Talk right here on Capital Update. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, in the studio today, we're going to be talking to someone who owns a feng shui business and obviously has gone and is very famous throughout Malaysia, in fact. In fact, he doesn't like to call himself a feng shui master. In fact, he would rather call himself a feng shui practitioner or consultant. So in the studio with me today, sitting right across me, is Mr. Joey Yap, who is a feng shui practitioner and consultant. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us right here. Okay, from what I understand from your reading up on your history as well, I mean, you were actually an accountant before this.
Yes, I've studied accounting, but I've never been an accountant.
Ah, okay. So you've never been an accountant.
This is my first and only job.
Your first and okay, so you gave up numbers to do this. Now, when did you sort of first discover your skills in feng shui and bazi?
Actually, it's an interest that I have since I was in my high school days, and I sort of learned it, on and off. And then during my uni days, I started practicing. Right. So that's how the whole, consulting business is formed. Since then.
Oh, I see. So it's basically something that how did you actually sort of, you figure out that this was actually your line?
Yeah, it's in a dream.
No, right? Imagine, I wish that could come to me sometimes,
No, actually, this is something that I picked up during my high school days, as I said earlier on. And during my uni days, I was practicing this. So I have clients then, and, it seems that the clientele keeps building up.
So obviously you've had quite a fair bit of success with your feng shui readings and such.
Correct. So it started many years ago. So as I said, this has been my first and only job.
First and only job, right.
I'm unemployable right now. So.
Because of that, actually. Yeah. But the thing is, for you to have that much success, that means, how would you sort of rate your success as far as your
I think I still have a long way to go, considering what I would like to achieve ultimately. You see, prior to me doing this consulting firm sort of arrangement for this feng shui, prior to that, feng shui is much like home-based, cottage industry sort of thing, where, if you want a feng shui consultant, usually go for a feng shui master, and he comes from his home, and he comes with his robes and fan and stuff, right?
Yeah. And typical, stereotypical,
right? So that image is not good, So and plus they don't do it in a professional way. So I sort of, changed the way it is practiced. So now a more structured system, because this is an art and a science at the same time. Right. And in order for it to have any respectability in society, it has to be, there must be results and there must be follow-ups, So how do you keep track of all this if you don't have a proper team and a proper system in order to manage your clients and manage expectations and produce results? Right. So the whole firm itself, we have a big team that does all this. Right? So we do the consult, we do the follow-ups, we keep track, so that's how it's done.
So even after you've sort of dealt with a client or helped them out in any way, you actually still do follow-ups with your clients?
For a long time,
For a long time.
Minimum of 6 months.
6 months?
At least.
And how is the longest that you've actually done in terms of
normally the clients stick with us for a long time.
Okay.
So, but
so it's basically
because
they want
per
to,
project, so that is the minimum thing that we would do. That's a five-step process of how we do a consultation.
Right.
So in old days, it's just you call the master here and he takes your ampao, he goes home and never sees you again, right? So this is different. So what we do is we start off with an assessment. So let's say you are interested in a feng shui assessment. So we first assess your property or your piece of land, and we will tell you the potential of this property and land. And then we go through the audit process. Meaning now we'll have recommendations, we come up with ideas of how you could best use this property based on your date and time of birth, whoever is using the property and so forth. There is a process where we actually do further research, further developments, and then that's the third stage, R&D. Okay, so it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to do that, because there's a lot of small things that we may miss out on site. In the old days, a feng shui guy comes there and they see within 3-4 minutes and he goes off. Right. Now there's a lot of research and data, so we prepare like a full report. And stage 4 is where we actually have all the architects and the designers and the owners together discuss
how it's supposed to be built,
how it's supposed to be done. And then the 5th stage is make sure it happens correctly and follow up.
So it's actually quite a long and tedious process.
It's a long process. So it's no longer just come and then you collect the angpao and then you go.
Right. Yeah. Now, you've obviously been very interested in feng shui since you were in your uni days. I mean, were you actually taught feng shui, or did you sort of pick it up on your own?
I picked it up from various people and practitioners. As I told you, I've gone through reading books, meeting different practitioners. Sometimes some of them are very good practitioners, but they're lousy teachers. Some of them are great teachers, but they don't know how to practice. Just like any art, there are people teaching in business schools who are professors, but they don't run businesses. Then there are great businessmen, but they don't know how to teach. right? So in feng shui, it's the same thing. There are academics, and then there are practitioners.
Right.
So I sort of go to all these practitioners and then the academics, and then we study from books, and that's how I gather all the information. And plus, because feng shui is such a traditional art in the old days, it is so difficult to get a sort of unified set of information. Information is like everywhere. It's so difficult to get. So during my research and all that, I discovered there are so many different schools and so many different techniques. And it's so difficult for anyone just to go and learn it by themselves. And that's why as a side business, I sort of produce all these books, and since it's part of my research material anyway, it won't take me too much just to write it down in a more presentable and understandable way.
And of course, aid people in the process while you're doing it
yes.
as well, right?
So and at the same time, so that's how I build up the all these books now up to date, and then there's a whole academy teaching these programs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if we look at feng shui, how can we relate feng shui and Chinese metaphysics in our working environment and business environment?
Okay. You see, there's a whole art of business training that talks about developing the person. Okay? So it's about the human beings, right? So how do we affect change on people? That's the most important thing. So basically, there are two forces that affect people. And normally, in the old Chinese version of it, they call it luck. Okay? So, okay, let's say I use this word luck. How do we account for it? There's such a thing called external and internal luck. Okay? If you don't like the word luck, we say it's factors. Okay? External and internal factors. When we say external factors, it relates to the environment, the economy, the market, maybe information about things around you. That with that information, you can anticipate and prepare yourself, right? Okay, so I call these external factors. And then there are internal luck or internal factors. For example, a person's character or attitude, which is, it could be an asset or a liability.
A liability.
Right? Or a person's thoughts, how a person thinks is extremely important, because, there's one ultimate purpose in life, and the purpose is to be happy. But to be happy, many people have different ways. And it all starts from their thinking. So it's good to know that pattern of their thoughts, right? And the third thing is very important, which is, we always talk about this, talk about gifts, about talents, right? The sooner we can discover our inner talent, the sooner we can enter the path of least resistance to our success. Many people will discover
more like a subconscious thing, actually.
Yes, but we need to discover that, right? So let's say you're really good at singing, but you discover that you could really sing like Whitney Houston at the age of 80. What happens?
Oh, I wouldn't know. What would happen, actually?
Yeah, then you'll be a singing granny.
You're singing granny, pretty much, yeah.
So there's no point right now. You miss out all the opportunities. So you want to discover your talent as early as possible in life. So that is what we mean by internal luck. Now, the idea of metaphysics is to help you discover both external and internal. So in a business environment, we want to know and anticipate, for example, market conditions, economy, and how it affects you, the trend of your industry, or the environment, how it affects the people as a group. External factors that may be beyond your control. That's the realm of feng shui. Feng shui talks about your environment. Okay, you have a work environment, you have the business environment, so many possibilities, right? And then the Bazi or astrology talks about the inner environment.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I mean, it's a bit new to me, Bazi. I mean, so what is it?
Bazi basically means astrology. Okay,
astrology,
it's a type of astrology. We have Western astrology, there is Indian astrology, then there's Chinese astrology. Different forms, same stars, okay? You see, in the old days, there are a lot of people who have nothing to do. There's no Facebook, no TV, nothing.
So no social media websites,
so what do? They look at the stars and start to make relationships between the stars and human beings, right? So that's the whole idea of astrology. That's how it comes from. So different regions of the world will have their own system. So you have the Western system, and then the Indian system, and then the Chinese system. Chinese have two systems. One is called Purple Star, the other one is called Bazi, 8 characters.
I see.
Okay, so this system is called the 8 character system. Now, it's still the same stars, just a different way. It's like a different, like you have a Porsche or a Mercedes, different brands but same car, right? So what I have here is that I took this system and applied it to the business environment, to people, You see, the thing is, we don't predict someone's future. In the old days, it's easy to predict future because most things are really set. If I look at your chart and I see a heart problem, you're going to die of a heart problem. I will be accurate. The reason is very simple. In the old days, there is no heart bypass. If you have a heart attack in your chart, you will die. But today, medical advances and all that, it can help you live longer. So we no longer can really predict an absolute future, but what we can do is we can see patterns.
Right.
So because we understand these patterns, we can then help that person develop to the maximum talent or potential that they have.
Right.
Okay, that's what we mean by internal luck.
Okay.
So that's the whole idea of astrology. And astrology basically also can do two things. One is to see your possible outcome as a result of the pattern that you have.
Right.
And the other thing is to increase your personal internal luck. Meaning your character, your thinking.
In other words,
your
make you a
talents.
better person, pretty much.
Much better person.
Right.
So that's how it's done.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, let's look at feng shui consultancy as a business
All
right
right.
now. Now, you obviously discovered that you had this particular passion for feng shui.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when did you actually sort of look at it as a sort of, I wouldn't say start a business. I mean, when did you actually sort of look at it as more of a business?
I think when it started to grow to a situation where I could no longer
sort of handle it on your own.
Yeah,
pretty much,
then we
right?
started hiring people, and it sort of developed into a business. Now,
Right.
my main idea of starting the consultancy was not because I wanted to do a business.
Right.
Okay, I regard myself more like an artist. Okay,
Okay.
so it's also what I talk about these days during in astrology classes, where we
Right.
categorize people into three types. The artistic types, meaning you have an art to sell. For example, you are a good TV host. For example, you have an art, a skill.
Thank you very much for that.
And then they are very good operators.
Right.
People who really operate and manage things. Okay, so these people will grow up to become good managers. Okay,
Right.
and then they're the good entrepreneurs who really wants to do business, buy and sell, and basically build something. So out of these three categories, I regard myself more as an artist. So I have an art. I want to make sure people get to benefit from this art.
From it, right.
Appreciate it. And to do that, you need good operators and
Yeah.
business people to help you out. So
Right.
I discovered that, if I want to do this, I got to have these two people with me.
Right.
So that's how we start getting the team together. And
So the thing is,
how-
like, if you're starting your business as well, I mean, you couldn't obviously just pick any person off the street to actually sort of join you. You had to go
Yes.
through some process to sort of
yes,
evaluate.
the process is very simple. People always look for compatibility,
Right.
I don't.
Okay.
All right, that's a big difference here. You see, you can be compatible with someone, but that person could be incompetent. What's the
okay.
point of partnering someone who is incompetent
True,
just because he or she is
He's
compatible,
with you,
all
right.
So if in business we look for people who are competent and have the attitude and character to do the job. All right. So basically, what I'll do is I'll look at their charts and understand that the capacity. I may not be compatible. I may not even like them. Okay, but they can do the job.
They can do the job.
That's the most
right.
important part.
So the thing is, when you started this business, I mean, how long ago was it that you actually sort of...
15 years.
15 years
Yeah.
already. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So looking at it now, we're in 2012. So this would have been sometime
97,
in 97, in
yeah,
fact, well,
97.
just before the financial crisis. How
Yeah.
about that? So the
it
thing
was
is,
hard at the time.
That
but-
was really hard
but it
because
was fun.
we were totally not prepared for it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think some people looked at it rather drastically and said that it was pretty bad.
Mm.
But looking at it now, 15 years you've been in this business. I mean, how do you see your business sort of doing 8 years from now in 2020?
I think we'll be much better than it is right now because more and more people are accepting this. All right, because the snake oil incense thing is fading away, and people start to realize the benefits of using feng shui and astrology.
Right.
It's basically like in the old days, maybe like 20, 30 years ago, personality testing, when it was first introduced, Myers-Briggs, DISC system,
Yep.
at that time nobody accepted this. Now it's a corporate norm. Everyone does personality tests. Okay, so I foresee that astrology and feng shui in this mode, in the long run, will become something of that effect.
Do you think it'll be something that businesses will adopt
Will
more easily?
adopt, yes.
Because I mean, obviously, you talk about being compatible and obviously being competent at the same
Yeah,
time.
because this is very important.
yeah.
You see, personality test alone can find out your character at the moment,
right.
but it cannot find out core characters, and it cannot foresee what sort of outcome and hidden talents that a person would have. Astrology is a system designed since old days just to discover this. Talents, what you're good at doing, what you're meant to do, for example, what you are meant to do great. Now, you'll be surprised that a lot of people don't do what they're meant to do.
Right.
That's why they have, really troubled lives.
Okay. Now the thing is, this business that you're in, I mean, in terms of are any other consultancy firm, feng shui consultancy
So
firms
far, not that I know.
doing the same thing as you?
There are a lot of people doing the same thing that I'm doing in the same field,
Right.
but they're not doing the same way I'm doing it.
Okay.
It's as you can see, it's hard to get people together, a team together. So you see, when you put a group of artists together, it's very hard to work together.
Oh,
That is the
that I
hardest
would
one,
agree. Yes.
right?
Yes, yeah.
Even in any line, any artist group together, they're artists. They have more love for the art than the business itself.
Right.
Okay, so that is the challenging part for most people in our field or in most artistic fields. Okay, that's why you don't see so many, consulting feng shui teams, out there. That's the main challenge that they have to overcome.
Okay, we sort of have time for a couple of more questions. So, when you talk about sort of realizing abilities and stuff and like that, I mean, what's the main challenge in realizing the abilities of people?
Awareness.
Awareness.
I think the first step is getting that person to become aware of it, because younger people is easier. And let's say this person is like, 50 years old. In 50 years old, that person did not have any prior experience in knowing that talent. And all of a sudden, there's this guy here looking at a personality chart and saying, hey, you actually have this talent, but you did not know. So that process will take longer because he or she is not aware.
Right.
That awareness process, it takes time. And once they are aware, they get onto the path of least resistance to their success.
Okay.
That takes time.
All right. That actually takes quite a bit of time for them to actually.
Yes.
So awareness is something that needs to come from within, pretty much.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah.
One last question before we wrap things up here. Now, apart from over 75 bestseller books, you've obviously created quite a bit of a stir with that. We're interested in your Decoding Your Destiny seminar.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the seminar about, and who can benefit from it?
Right. This seminar is extremely important in the sense of self-discovery.
Right.
Because everyone wants to know what they're good at doing, what the potentials are. So I've packed all this information into one day where we're going to talk about how you can decode your chart to find out 3 very important aspects. Number 1, what is the wealth potential? How to maximize that? Number 2, how do you see connections with other people? Because everything you ever want in life comes from other people. So how do you make that connection?
Right.
And the third thing is very important. What's the path ahead? Are there any obstructions and obstacles? What is the easiest path that you can walk?
Right.
So if you discover 3 things, at least you could improve your life by 30 to 50% easily.
Okay.
That's what the whole seminar is about.
That's what the whole seminar is about, right? Okay. Well, Joey, that's about all the time we have for this edition of Capital Talk. Now, for those of you that want to know more about Joey Yap and his books, obviously you have the Bazi profiling here, the 10-day master. Now, apparently these books are available in
all the bookstores,
all the major bookstores around here. So if you want to get your copy, you can definitely do so, and obviously give yourself some insight as to what you should be and what you can be.
That's right. And my seminar on
and the seminar on Decoding Your Destiny. Now, just quickly,
June 10th,
when is that?
June 10th.
June 10th. Okay.
Yes,
So
at the
for those of
Cal
you that
Convention Center.
Right. So for those of you that want to know more about and want to attend this seminar, where can they sort of?
They can go to my website,
okay.
or joeyyap.com.
Right.
So all the information is there. You can send an email to us right now.
Right, so capital at joeyyap.com, is that right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of you that want to know more about the seminar, and of course wanting to get more information about the seminar and want to perhaps go to the seminar, the email to sort of inquire is capital at joeyyap.com. Well, that's about all the time we have for this edition of Capital Talk. Thank you very much for joining us for this particular edition of Capital Talk. I'm Kevin Barnaby. It's back to Capital Updates. See you soon.